I would like to invite Colby Eads to please come forward to say a few words. Colby is Mike's nephew.
Okay, we're freestyling it here. We're adding people to the program. So anything can happen.
Hi, guys.
Okay. Okay, so this is gonna start with some showing writing that's really bad because I wrote it. Okay, so I'm just gonna start. Grazing in the field, the mighty buffalo stands. A ferocious wind blows, ramming the buffalo's sides, not even affecting him. His strength unmatched, his headstrong attitude proving this beautiful and majestic animal to be just one of God's many elegant creatures. In the north, the buffalo hears an approaching stampede of Indians, who in a search for their next victims, narrow in closer and closer to the buffalo. An Indian on a horse slowly swoops in and shoots the buffalo's head. The once majestic and beautiful creature of God lies on the ground, only a cold, hard shell of its prior being. My uncle was one of God's beautiful and majestic creatures that was stripped of his prior being in order to become a similar foreign shell by not an Indian, but a disease, Alzheimer's. Throughout the population of the United States, there are 5.3 million inhabitants currently living with Alzheimer's, out of a total population of 318.9 million, making up 1.67% of the population. You can break down this 1.67 percentage into a category of age. My uncle was diagnosed at the age of 54, meaning he made up a minuscule portion of those diagnosed before the age of 64, which in a total number makes up 200,000, meaning my uncle made up a minuscule portion of American citizens of 0.063%. Similar to this percentage, between the time of 1750 and 1850, the amount of American buffalo in comparison to their prior population left on Earth was 0.071%. Now, I guess I said both of those because just the aura of one is somewhat negative and the aura of the other is positive, but they both represent somewhat of the same person. So why was he one of the unlucky decimal of this percentage of people to be burdened with a horrible fate, and why had we let this happen to the American buffalo, who in itself was a beautiful creature? The answer to these questions we may never know, but I feel that Uncle Mike should not be remembered as this fraction or as a disease. I feel we should remember him as for who he was, the strong, independent man that we all grew to love, our courageous buffalo. When I began to write this, I searched for many different poems or forms of literature that may utilize a sense of fulfillment in those who have experienced some of his final stages, or the times in which we did not know if he was truly present or just a masked shell. I found one that, even though the aura of the poem may seem to be negative throughout the reading of it, when taken apart and annotated and looked carefully, it conveys a hopeful and relieving message. It's called The Long Goodbye. Deep within that hollow stare, our presence, they're unaware. A life that is fading away in spite of things that we try to convey. Memories locked up in their mind, and they're kept that all confined. Good times spent long ago, and all their love they did bestow. For these moments will live forever, and our pride in them will endeavor. Seeing them lie there, we know why Alzheimer's is called The Long Goodbye. I chose this poem in particular to share, not for the negative aura presented in the first stanza and last verse, but to segue into the rest of what I have to say, but to tell those who have seen him at these final times all the goodbyes and happy memories that he has had throughout his life were always there, even in the times of turmoil that we may think that they weren't. It specifically tells me that Uncle Mike was, and always will be there. And the moments that you and I have shared with him are not lost, and gives me a sense of relief. For I feel, even though he could not convey that he remembered these good times, that deep down they were still there. Uncle Mike, when I was younger, he just somewhat came off as a stud. I mean, like when I thought of like the coolest person I could think of, the first person that popped up in my mind was Uncle Mike. I mean, his signature Oakley sunglasses and the baseball cap, along with just some regular shirt and pants, he just looked pretty cool, you know? But it wasn't the apparel that made him seem so cool to me. It was his somewhat like inability to care about what others thought of him, that he only cared about who he truly was. And I mean, as my mom would say a lot, he lived the life of the party. I mean, just looking at him, he looks like a fun guy, a happy-go-lucky type of person who always enjoys a good time, and he himself fit that description. I mean, he had to fit this type of personality in order to have ever won over Aunt Stacy, who was a bubbly person herself. Just last night, I saw a picture of Uncle Mike at a Christmas party that had been at my house before I was born. In it, he had a hat on that had 2 beers to the sides and 2 that led into his mouth. And on it, it said Buffalo. I don't know really why it said that, and he was also wearing cow slippers. I can remember back when I was little, I would always prefer to go out to the holidays to Uncle Mike and Aunt Stacy's house rather than Nanny's. No offense, Nanny. Just because I knew that I'd always have a great time at theirs. But Uncle Mike wasn't only this man that lived the life of the party. At the same time, he proved to be a great man himself. I do not believe that he ever lacked courage, which comes as an opposite for me. I will never forget when my mom was saying one time, she was talking about my posture, that my uncle came in and just tried to correct me upon it. He walked in and said, "You're a good boy, Colby. Be proud of it. Don't slouch. Walk around as if you were wearing a medal on your chest." This was just something I never forgot about him, and is one of the many ways that he proved to be such a great man and role model for others.
Even though we like to pin this disease as a horrible thing, and that we forget that even though it is what ended him, it never broke his confidence or changed his personality. As much as I hate to say it, much of what I characterize as my Uncle Mike comes from the times after he was diagnosed. But this is not in itself a bad thing, for these times that I remember are happy where he proved to be himself. His reaction to the news of this was rather shocking, as he took it so well when many of us wouldn't have. This showed his courage, further realizing his let alone physical characteristics, but also his general characterization that he was in fact a buffalo, as he was strong, courageous, and hard-willed. Also, throughout the time after he was diagnosed, he still shared many fun times with him, as he never let his malfunction in his brain taint his purity of life. He, in these times of hardship, always made sure to brighten our moods, sometimes even when he didn't know that he was. My favorite memory of him was after he was diagnosed and we were going somewhere in the Suburban, and we had left a seat warmer on. At first he was fine, and just sat there as content as a person can be. But then he turns and looks Uncle Jack straight in the face and says, "Dear God, my butt is on fire." And he couldn't figure out why. There was also many moments throughout his experience of this disease that he demonstrated his same character. Some aspects of it may have even strengthened throughout it. One thing that he made certain throughout this time was his utter love for his wife, and she did the same towards him. and he always would tell her how much he loved her and shown his appreciation for her and everything she did for him. Uncle Mike, you will forever be my guardian angel. And as hard as it is,
Uncle Mike, you will forever be my guardian angel. And as hard as it is to say goodbye, I am happy that he has moved on to a better place. This long goodbye, though brutal and harsh, has led to not make him a better man. Has led to not make him a better man. But through his response to this shortcoming, he has utilized his magnificent character. For I believe that it was not the disease that defined him, for he defined himself through this shortcoming, his courage, love, hard-headedness, wisdom, humor, and strength, where many others would have given up and cowered down, and for that he will forever be missed. He touched the lives of so many, whether it be as a husband, friend, uncle, son, godfather, co-worker, fishing buddy, or whatever roles that he played. And for that, he will be missed. But in the end, I feel that this is time for this long goodbye to come to a close, and for him to enter eternal life with God, and for us to celebrate the times that he was here with us on earth. So with that, I would like to say goodbye, Uncle Mike. I love you, and welcome to eternal happiness.